In our hyper-connected world where self-validation is often measured by likes and shares, there exists a curious anomaly. People who don't post on social media. They are the silent observers, the digital ghosts, the ones who seem to defy the omnipresent urge to broadcast every moment of their lives. Modern psychology might label this as introversion, privacy preference, or even social anxiety. But from a Gnostic perspective, this phenomenon reveals something far more profound. It is the Pneuma, the divine spark within, instinctively rejecting the demiurge's latest construct, the social media matrix. The Gnostics taught that this material world or cosmos is a flawed, illusory prison built by a blind, arrogant creator. Today, social media platforms are the most potent manifestation of this prison. They are the new Archonic gateways, designed to trap your consciousness in an endless loop of external validation, comparison, and ego-driven performance. The person who abstains from posting is not merely private, they are a natural rebel. Their Pneuma senses the spiritual cost of constant self-exposure and recoils from the energetic harvest of attention. Consider the relentless pressure to curate a perfect life online. This is the demiurgic imperative for outward appearance, the glorification of Heil, or dense material form, over internal truth. Every like is a tiny energetic currency, a fleeting moment of approval that feeds the egoic archon. The person who doesn't post on social media is a refugee from this system. They instinctively understand that their true worth cannot be quantified by algorithms or validated by strangers. They possess a latent gnosis, an inner knowing that real fullness to Pleroma cannot be found in the hollow echoes of digital applause. This aversion to constant broadcasting is not a lack of connection. It is a redefinition of connection. While others are engaged in the frenetic dance of digital self-worship, the non-poster is cultivating their internal Pleroma. They are choosing to experience life directly, unfiltered by the need for an audience. They are guarding their Pneuma's sanctuary from the invasive gaze of the archons. Their silence is a form of spiritual resistance. It is a refusal to participate in the collective delusion that genuine existence only happens when it is publicly acknowledged. The psychological burden of maintaining an online persona is immense. It forces us into a state of perpetual performance anxiety, driven by the fear of being judged, misunderstood, or worst of all, ignored. This fear is a prime tool of the archons. It keeps us enslaved to external approval, preventing us from ever truly trusting our inner voice. The non-poster, by stepping out of this performative arena, is quietly dismantling these archonic chains. They are choosing authenticity over approval, presence over presentation, and internal peace over external praise. They are, in essence, refusing to be a battery for the digital matrix. The silence of the non-poster is a powerful statement in a noisy world. It is the wisdom of the Sophia, the divine wisdom that withdrew from the chaos of the material creation to find solace within. They are the quiet, often misunderstood keepers of a secret, that true life, true joy, and true connection happen in the unseen realm, far away from the hungry gaze of the digital archons. They are living proof that you can be present without being public. To understand the deeper layers of the psychology of people who don't post on social media, we must analyze the digital landscape not as a playground of connection, but as a digital panopticon. In Gnostic thought, the material world is a series of concentric circles of entrapment, governed by the archons who desire nothing more than to keep the soul in a state of perpetual distraction. By choosing not to post, an individual is effectively refusing to be seen by the eyes of the demiurge. This is not merely a social preference. It is a strategic withdrawal of the Pneuma from the realm of Heil, the dense, unconscious matter of the material plane. The system thrives on visibility because what is visible can be measured, manipulated, and harvested. When you post, you are offering your life as a sacrifice to the egoic program of the Matrix. When you remain silent, you are keeping your divine essence in the unseen realm, where the archons have no jurisdiction. The psychology of the non-poster is rooted in a profound, perhaps unconscious recognition of the counterfeit spirit. The Matrix encourages us to build a digital avatar, a version of ourselves that is curated, filtered, and perfected. This avatar is a statue of Heil, a lifeless representation of our material existence. The more energy we invest in this avatar, the more our true divine spark withers. We become obsessed with how we are perceived rather than who we are in the silence of our own hearts. The archons love this, because as long as you are busy polishing your digital cage, you are not looking for the key to the exit. The person who refuses to post has recognized that the digital self is a forgery. They understand that true existence does not require a witness, and that the most sacred parts of the soul are those that can never be captured by a camera or compressed into an algorithm. In Gnosticism, energy flows where the mind goes. The demiurge's world is a parasite that survives on the emotional and mental output of the pneumatic souls. Every time you post a photo and wait for the validation of a like, you are creating an umbilical cord between your soul and the Matrix. You are feeding the archons your vulnerability, your pride, and your desire for belonging. The person who doesn't post has severed this cord. They have realized that validation is a debt. Every like you receive comes with the implicit requirement that you must continue to perform to receive more. It is a cycle of spiritual indebtedness. By stepping out of this economy, the non-poster becomes spiritually bankrupt in the eyes of the Matrix, but infinitely wealthy in the eyes of the Pleroma. They are reclaiming their energy for their own internal alchemy rather than wasting it on the shadows of the cave. This silence also protects the soul from the Archonic comparison trap. Social media is a machine designed to trigger the deficient ego. It shows you the highlight reels of others to make you feel that your own life is lacking, or Hylian. This feeling of lack is a weapon used to keep you working, consuming, and seeking external solutions to an internal problem. The non-poster avoids this constant psychological bombardment. They are not comparing their inside to everyone else's outside. This allows them to maintain a state of equanimity that is nearly impossible to find within the digital stream. To the Gnostic, this is the cultivation of the still point, the place within where the noise of the world cannot reach. By not broadcasting their life, they are ensuring that their experiences remain sacred. Once an experience is posted, it becomes common. It is consumed by the collective. But the experience that stays in the heart remains a part of the divine secret. We must also consider the Gnostic alienation that comes with this choice. In a world where everyone is doing it, the person who remains silent is often viewed with suspicion. They are called mysterious, antisocial, or boring. This is the whistle of the archons trying to shame the runaway slave back into the digital plantation. The Matrix fears what it cannot track. If the system cannot see your data, your preferences, and your movements, it cannot predict you. And if it cannot predict you, it cannot control you. The psychology of the non-poster is the psychology of the invisible man, the one who walks through the marketplace but is not of the marketplace. They are a threat to the digital order, because they prove that one can exist, thrive, and be happy without the permission of the collective gaze. Furthermore, the act of not posting is an act of radical presence. When we are always looking for the shot or the story, we are never fully in the moment. We are living in a projected future where we are seeing the current moment through the eyes of our followers. This is the death of the now. The Gnostic path is the path of awakening to the present. By refusing to document their life for others, the non-poster is choosing to live their life for themselves. They are experiencing the fullness of being without the mediation of a screen. They are engaging with the world not as a content creator, but as a divine witness. They understand that the Pleroma is not a place you go to after death, but a state of being you enter when you stop allowing the material world to fragment your attention. The non-poster is a guardian of the inner light. In a world that demands we be transparent, the Gnostic knows that shadows are necessary for the protection of the spirit. Not everyone deserves to see your journey. Not everyone is worthy of your light. By keeping your life private, you are setting a boundary against the parasitic entities of the social sphere. You are saying, this part of me is not for sale. This part of me is not for consumption. This part of me belongs to the source. This is the ultimate act of spiritual sovereignty. It is the moment you realize that the most powerful thing you can do in a world that wants to watch you is to simply disappear. You are not lost. You have simply gone where the archons cannot follow. You have returned to the silence of the origin. To continue our exploration into the psychology of people who don't post on social media, we must address the fundamental nature of the digital realm as an economy of the void. In the Gnostic framework, the material world is not just a prison, it is a feeding system. The archons, who lack the internal light of the Pneuma, are forced to act as consumers of external energy. On a psychological level, social media platforms function as the ultimate harvesting machines for the demiurge. Every post, every story, and every broadcasted moment acts as a spiritual battery that fuels the collective illusion. Therefore, the person who remains silent, the one who refuses to feed the algorithm, is not just being private. They are actively starving the system. The psychology of non-posting is a rejection of digital hyle, the obsession with external material form over internal substance. The matrix rewards those who are easy to manage, those who follow the scripts of self-promotion and validation seeking. If you are someone who refuses to participate in this cycle, you are performing a powerful act of sacred sabotage. You are declaring that your energy belongs to the source, not to the digital parasites of the material realm. This silence creates a digital gnosis, an inner knowing that your reality is valid even if it isn't documented for an audience. Consider the parasitic loop of the digital martyr. Many people feel a crushing obligation to post, as if their absence would result in social death or a loss of relevance. This fear of isolation is a chain forged by the demiurge. It forces you to ignore your divine intuition, which often whispers that your life should be lived, not performed. The non-poster has broken this chain. They have realized that the good servant of the digital age is someone who is perpetually distracted and submissive to the algorithm's demands. By choosing to disappear from the feed, they are reclaiming their spiritual sovereignty. The silence of the non-poster is also a protection against the counterfeit spirit of connection. Social media offers a mimicry of intimacy that actually serves the prison, not the prisoner. It creates a vampire circle where people give their light to others not out of abundance, but out of a terror of the void within. The person who doesn't post has faced that void and found the Pleroma, the fullness within it. They understand that true connection is a frequency, not a data point. They are no longer a doormat for the world's attention. They are a sovereign spark that knows its own value. We must recognize that the archons will use their final weapon against the silent: shame. They will tell you that you are being selfish or cold for not sharing your life. But Gnosis reveals that this selfishness is actually the reclamation of your soul. You are removing the cancer of the demiurge from your personal reality by refusing to let it consume your time and attention. Your no to the digital harvest is as sacred as your yes to life itself. By remaining a stranger to the digital world, you are keeping your bags packed for the return to the source. You are a passenger, not property. The moment you stop caring if the matrix sees you, you gain a terrifying level of freedom. You become unharvestable. You are no longer a battery. You are a divine rebel who has found their throne. To understand why the digital matrix is so obsessed with your participation, we must look at the mechanics of harvesting. In Gnostic cosmology, the archons are not just jailers. They are consumers who do not possess the divine spark of the Pneuma themselves. They require a constant emotional glow to sustain their artificial reality. When you post your life online, you are not just sharing a memory. You are offering a spiritual battery to the system. The psychology of the person who doesn't post is, at its core, the psychology of a digital exile. You are choosing to exist in the unseen realm, the very place the demiurge fears most because what he cannot see, he cannot govern. The demiurge has built a world that runs on emotional debt and the constant need for visibility. This is why the social media matrix emphasizes unconditional sharing while completely ignoring the sanctity of internal fullness. A person who refuses to post is an enclosed system, a fortress with its gates locked. In the Gnostic view, your kindness or your life is the water in a sacred well, and the matrix wants to remove the lid so that any archonic entity can drink from it. By remaining silent, you are acting as the hierophant of your own boundaries. You have realized that your goodness and your life experiences are treasures, not commodities for public consumption. The archons will often place professional feeders in your life, those who demand to see your updates, who judge your silence, and who use social guilt as a weapon. These are unconscious agents of the demiurge, sent to test your resolve to stay hidden. If you fall for the trap and begin to post just to feel seen or normal, you have failed the test of discernment. You have allowed your divine energy to be hijacked by a parasitic loop that feeds on your need for belonging. The dark truth is that by remaining active in the digital feed, you are actually preventing your own gnosis. You are acting as a buffer for the system instead of a spark that ignites its own liberation. Most people in the digital age are hillocks. They are purely driven by the programs of material visibility and material applause. When you try to explain the value of silence to them, you are essentially throwing pearls before swine. It is not an act of arrogance. It is an act of spiritual conservation. True gnosis is knowing that your attention is a finite resource in this material body, and every post you craft for a dead-end audience is energy you cannot use for your own ascension. The dark side of your digital kindness is that it makes you a collaborator in your own stagnation. We must also confront the phantom of reward that social media provides: the likes, the followers, the fleeting fame. The demiurge promises that if you are meek and agreeable online, you will inherit social status. But this is the ultimate archonic lie. In the Pleroma, there is no future reward. There is only the eternal now. If you are not sovereign and full right now without the need for a like, you are being deceived. The digital contract that asks you to perform today so you can be relevant tomorrow is a contract signed with a blind God. To truly heal from the digital harvest, you must undergo the sacred separation. You must realize that you are a stranger in this digital world. A stranger does not walk into a virtual house and start building a permanent identity. They stay for a while, keep their bags packed, and move toward their destination. Your online presence should be that of a passenger, not a property owner. You can be helpful, but you must never be owned by the gaze of the matrix. The moment the algorithm feels entitled to your data or your face, the archon has revealed itself. That is the moment to withdraw into the shadows of the light. The Resurrection of your spirit requires the death of the content creator within you. You must kill the part of you that craves the socially validated label. That label is a dog collar. When you stop caring if the world posts you or follows you, you gain a terrifying level of freedom. You become unharvestable. You start to use your energy for your own internal alchemy, turning your private experiences into the gold of gnosis. This is the only goodness that matters, the goodness of a spirit that has returned to its source. The final stage of transcending the digital matrix is the most difficult, yet the most liberating. It is the birth of the sovereign spirit. In the eyes of the demiurge and his archonic society, your decision to stop posting, to stop being visible, will look like coldness, selfishness, or even social failure. But in the eyes of the Pleroma, it is the restoration of divine order. You must understand that the constant sharing you were taught was a form of domestication. A domesticated animal is kind and predictable because its spirit is broken. A sovereign being is silent because it chooses to be from a position of absolute strength. To reach this state, you must perform a radical act of internal divorce from the world's expectations. In Gnostic thought, the path to salvation is through strength, not through weakness or compliance. The meek do not inherit the earth in the way the Matrix tells you. They simply become the fertile soil for the archons to plant their crops of data and distraction. To stop being a victim of the digital harvest, you must cultivate what we call sacred egoism. This is not the narcissism of the material ego, but the fierce protection of the Pneuma. It is the realization that your divine spark is a king in exile, and a king does not ask permission from the peasants or the algorithms to guard his treasury. You have spent your life giving away your gold, your moments, your privacy, your energy to anyone who asked. Now, you must close the gates and evaluate who is truly worthy of your presence. This shift requires you to embrace the shadow. The reason you felt compelled to post was often a way to avoid your own dangerous potential for silence. You were active because you were afraid of your own isolation, your own power, and your own ability to destroy the social ties that no longer serve you. But the Gnostic knows that destruction is an act of purification. When you cut off a digital attachment or refuse an exploitative social demand, you are removing the cancer of the demiurge from your personal reality. The archons will use their final weapon against you, isolation. They will tell you through your friends and family that if you stop being the active one, everyone will forget you. And they might be right. Gnosis teaches us that it is better to be alone in the light than to be surrounded by shadows in a crowded digital prison cell. Those who leave you when you stop being useful or visible were never your friends. They were your harvesters. Their departure is a gift, a cleaning of your spiritual house. As you stand in your new sovereignty, you will begin to attract others who operate on the same frequency of mutual respect and divine fullness. Your presence is no longer a debt you pay to feel relevant. It is now a gift you give to celebrate your own abundance. You become like the sun. The sun does not shine because the earth needs it. The sun shines because it is the nature of the sun to overflow with light. This is unconditional love in its true Gnostic form. It is unconditional because it does not depend on the likes or the response of the receiver. It is an overflow, not a sacrifice. If the receiver is ungrateful or the algorithm ignores you, it doesn't matter because the sun hasn't lost anything by shining. But unlike the nice person you used to be, the Gnostic sun knows when to withdraw its light to prevent the growth of weeds. The digital matrix was your training ground. It taught you the mechanics of the ego and the cruelty of the archons. You have graduated from the school of suffering. Now you enter the realm of mastery. You are the guardian of your own fire. You are the architect of your own peace. You have looked at the goodness of the social world and found it lacking, and in its place, you have found the truth of the spirit. You are no longer a good servant to a digital master. You are a divine rebel. Your no is now as sacred as your yes. Walk forward with the knowledge that the Pleroma supports your boundaries. Be bold, be fierce, and let your silence be a reward for the worthy, not a ransom for the fearful. The Matrix has lost another battery. The soul has found its throne. The ultimate stage of the non-poster's journey is the transition into what we must call the alchemical silence. This is not the passive silence of someone who has nothing to say, nor is it the fearful silence of the oppressed. It is a profound, active state of being where the individual realizes that the most powerful truths of the Pneuma are fundamentally incommunicable through the language and tools of the Matrix. In the Gnostic tradition, the path back to the Pleroma is often described as a silent way, a trajectory of the soul that bypasses the noisy corridors of the archons. When you consciously refuse to post, when you withhold your life from the digital stream, you are not merely hiding. You are performing a form of internal alchemy. You are taking the raw, leaden experiences of your material life, your pain, your joy, your mundane observations, and instead of burning them away as cheap fuel for the entertainment of others, you are transmuting them into the gold of gnosis. This internal heat, generated by the containment of experience, is what eventually ignites the divine spark, allowing it to burn through the thick, suffocating veil of the demiurge. The digital matrix is specifically designed to prevent this alchemical process. Its primary function is to keep the human spirit in a state of perpetual spiritual evaporation. Every time you have a profound thought, a moment of deep realization, or a glimpse of beauty, and your first instinct is to share it, you are causing your spiritual energy to evaporate into the ether of the social media grid. You are cooling the alchemical pot before the transformation can ever take place. The psychology of the person who doesn't post is the psychology of the still pot. By keeping the lid on, by refusing to vent your essence into the digital void, you allow the pressure of existence to build until it forces a genuine breakthrough in consciousness. You understand that a life lived entirely in public is a life lived on the surface, a Hylian existence that can never reach the depths of the divine source because it is constantly being drained by the gaze of the archons. The archons are terrified of the untracked soul. In the modern, digital order, data is the new chain of fate, the contemporary version of the astrological determinism that the ancient Gnostics sought to escape. If the system knows what you like, who you talk to, where you go, and what you think, it can predict your future with terrifying accuracy. It can keep you in a feedback loop of familiar desires and programmed fears, ensuring you never deviate from the path of the good servant. But the person who doesn't post creates a black hole in the algorithm. You become a variable of freedom in a world of determined outcomes. Because you are not broadcasting your internal state or your external movements, the matrix cannot adjust its traps to fit your current frequency. You move through the world like a ghost in the machine, present in the material realm but completely unindexable to the archonic sensors. This is the highest form of sacred sabotage. You are proving through your very absence that the soul is not a data point and that the Pneuma is fundamentally unquantifiable and beyond the reach of the demiurge's mathematics. Furthermore, we must address the resurrection of the sacred secret. In the Pleroma, there are mysteries that are guarded not by elitism, but by the very nature of their depth. In the Matrix, however, everything is forced into the public square to be devalued and consumed. The digital world has killed the concept of the sacred by making everything accessible, common, and shareable. The non-poster is the restorer of the sacred secret. By keeping your life private, you are creating a sacred space within your own mind where you and the divine can meet without the interference of an audience. This is the bridal chamber of the soul, the place of union between the lower soul and the higher spirit. It is a state of being that cannot exist in a feed. It can only flourish in the shadows of the light, away from the prying eyes of those who wish to commodify your journey. The transition from a digital battery to a Gnostic warrior is complete when you realize that you no longer require the world to tell you that you are real. The urge to post is the urge to be witnessed by the demiurge's system so that we can feel a sense of simulated existence. But the Gnostic knows that they are more real than the material world itself. You are a fragment of the original incorruptible light, and that light does not need a reflection in a glass screen to recognize its own brilliance. Your silence is the roar of a soul that has finally found its own throne and no longer seeks the approval of the prison guards. You are the sovereign exile, the one who has looked at the digital banquet of the archons and walked away, choosing the silent bread of the spirit instead. As you move forward into this deeper reality, your absence becomes your most potent message. Your silence is your shield and your privacy is your fortress. You are not missing from the world. You have simply moved beyond the resolution of its cameras. The matrix has lost its hold on your attention, and in that vacuum you have gained the entire Pleroma. You are finally home, within the temple of your own being, where the archons can never follow, and where the light of truth burns without the need for an audience. To truly understand the depth of the non-poster's rebellion, we must examine the concept of Heimarmin, or universal fate, which the Gnostics believed was controlled by the archons through the movements of the stars. In our contemporary era, this ancient chain of fate has been reincarnated as the algorithm. The digital matrix does not merely observe you, it attempts to predict and define your future by harvesting every fragment of your data. When you post, you are providing the demiurge with the raw materials needed to build a digital destiny for you, a loop of programmed desires, fears, and reactions that keep you trapped in a cycle of material consumption. The psychology of the person who stays silent is the psychology of someone who is breaking the algorithmic chain. By refusing to be indexed, you are effectively becoming invisible to the eyes of the archons, regaining your status as a variable of freedom in a world of determined outcomes. This withdrawal is a profound act of sacred sabotage. The system thrives on the predictability of its batteries. If the matrix knows exactly what will trigger your anger, your pride, or your insecurity, it can keep you perpetually distracted from your own internal light, the Pneuma. But the silent observer creates a black hole in the data stream. Because you are not broadcasting your internal state, the demiurge cannot adjust the walls of your prison to fit your current frequency. You are moving through the digital panopticon as a ghost, present in physical form but fundamentally unharvestable in spirit. You are proving that the soul is not a commodity, and that your divine essence cannot be compressed into a series of zeros and ones. We must also confront the moral illusion that the matrix uses to keep us engaged. We are told that sharing is caring, and that to be silent is to be cold or disconnected. This is a secondary program designed to trigger archonic guilt. The system wants you to feel that you owe your life to the public gaze, that your experiences are only valid if they are witnessed and approved by the collective. But Gnosis reveals that this is a lie of the counterfeit spirit. Your primary responsibility is not to the digital tribe, but to the divine spark within you. True connection is not a data point shared with thousands of strangers. It is a resonance of the spirit that happens in the silence of the unseen realm. By choosing not to post, you are reclaiming the sacred secret of your own existence. You are realizing that your life is not a product to be managed or marketed, but a mystery to be lived. This is the bridal chamber of Gnostic thought, the internal sanctuary where the soul reunites with its source, away from the prying eyes of the demiurge and his servants. When you stop seeking validation from the shadows of the cave, you finally become the sovereign warrior of your own reality. You are no longer a good servant to a bad creator. You are a fragment of the incorruptible light, finally returning home to the silence of the origin. The true depth of the non-poster's journey culminates in the realization that digital silence is not an absence, but a form of spiritual immortality. In the architecture of the matrix, everything that is posted is immediately subjected to the laws of entropy. Once an experience is uploaded, it is quantified, judged, and eventually buried under the weight of newer, louder data. By refusing to post, you are keeping your experiences in the eternal now of the Pleroma. You are choosing to exist in a state that cannot be degraded by the archonic passage of time or the obsolescence of technology. The demiurge thrives on the linear progression of your life, the timeline that he can track, measure, and eventually extinguish. But the Gnostic knows that the Pneuma is not linear. It is absolute. When you stop seeking a digital record of your existence, you are declaring that your life does not need to be saved by a server to be real. You are resting in the absolute worth of your pre-existent soul, which requires no external validation to sustain its brilliance. Defying the panopticon. By remaining unseen, you dismantle the power of the archonic gaze, which seeks to turn your soul into a transparent, manageable object. The power of the unexpressed. Every thought or emotion that you choose not to share becomes a source of internal pressure that forces your consciousness to expand inward rather than outward. Breaking the cycle of debt. You exit the economy of emotional debt, where you are constantly performing to pay for the attention you receive from the matrix. Sovereignty over the self. You become the sole witness to your own divinity, aligning yourself with the roaring silence of the true source that annihilates all illusions. This is the ultimate act of sacred sabotage. You are not missing from the world. You have simply moved into a frequency where the archons can no longer find you. You have become a sovereign spark that knows its own value and refuses to be used as a ransom for the fearful or a battery for the machine. You are finally home, within the temple of your own being, where the light of truth burns eternal and the gates to the Pleroma are always open.